Greetings and welcome to the Chaos Magick Debriefing. Today we're going to talk about what I learned in 30 plus years of practicing Chaos Magick. Now, in the last episode, Weaving Away Chaos, I talked about using Chaos Magick in a more of the idea of wielding chaos. Now, this is not the common conception of Chaos Magick, and I feel that we need to talk about this in detail before we go on to the next system, because there is some important stuff here. Chaos Magick is actually about seeing the patterns in chaos, the same as chaos theory. In fact, there are people that came to Chaos Magick through chaos theory over this idea of the patterns. Now, we are going to be changing it. I'm going to be changing my paradigm so that I see those patterns themselves as the weird, and we're beginning to actually work with the patterns. But this is what causes Chaos Magick to get into pop culture. Why you see all the pop culture references in Chaos Magick, and even how Chaos Magick will affect pop culture. Like the idea of sigils and the word noob are actually things that originated from the Chaos Magick community and spread outwards. And then that recycles back in with all kinds of different concepts and ideas, the FA, FO. I could bring up that concept a little bit later on in the video so I could use the F's in that, but I think we all know what I'm talking about. And that is a big part of, well, the chaos in it. Even when we're using these patterns, is we'll still try things and then see what the results were. But we're not just trying to see what the results are. We're looking for the patterns. We're looking for what things have momentum behind them that can be wielded or manipulated to affect patterns within our own lives. So that's the first part that I want to get into here, is that it is about the patterns, not the chaos itself. It is about utilizing aspects and pieces from different systems and being able to evolve them into a believable paradigm. And that will get us into this next concept that is in Chaos Magick that is intensely valuable, not just as a tool within the system itself, but a way to train your mind to be able to accept that there is no clear base reality. The base reality is unknowable. And because of that, belief itself is malleable. And we learn to paradigm shift. So in order to learn all the patterns of a particular system, you will enter into that system. Some people will embrace themselves into it for years and learn all the bits of it that work and study the system and find the patterns and momentums within it, and then stop believing and believe something else. I don't think it is good at first to go years into this, because it's hard to switch at first. If you're beginning early on to Chaos Magick, it's good to get up into an initiate status into a path, and then step away and add another one until you're getting this idea, because that's where the real change comes in, is at the initiate status. That's when you begin to really believe. And once you've really believed and you're starting into Chaos Magick, I found that was the time to leave. Once you've truly convinced yourself and you've got to look and you see what that particular system is about, you can put the pieces together and go on to the next one. And then if you feel there's more to learn, you can actually paradigm shift back, and it's easier to enter into one the second time. And there are many different tools you can use to alter your belief, but really, this is one of the few times where I actually agreed with Grant Morrison with the fake it till you make it. Just tell yourself you believe it, and every time a concept is repeated, the momentum of its pattern increases. I think I still quoted that wrong. Every time a concept is repeated, the momentum of its pattern increases. Oh, I did say it right. Okay, so and that works for belief. That especially works for things on the mental plane. So that's one way to switch paradigms. But with each one, you need to have the debriefing afterwards to see what in your FA, UFO. And with this, it's important to really get a look and just self-analyze afterwards. And now, I have used this paradigm shifting to actually shift away from chaos magic itself. And these are one of the big takeaways for me. The big takeaways for me is the idea of patterns. And that patterns form, but those patterns tend to have a pattern in which they form. There is an overall pattern that is twisting and turning within all of this. And those are the threads of fate that we are looking for. Chaos magic was, even though we are searching for patterns, it was also a way to randomize. It was a way for me to get everything possible and throw it out there, like when you're doing a divination. You cast out all these different concepts and ideas and let them scatter so that you can read them and see what is actually going on with the larger pattern. And now I know that there is indeed truth to the 4 laws that I was working with in the Sorcerer Shadow Volume 1. I talk about the 4 laws of sorcery. And part of what I was doing with chaos magic was testing these laws, seeing if I understood them and if they actually worked. And now after 30 plus years, I'm fairly confident that they are consistent. Nothing is completely true, perhaps, and as I said, that's one of the important lessons to learn here, is that there is no knowing the base reality. It is either unknowable or malleable, because every time we try to truly perceive it, it changes with our perception. It is always bending and shifting. And once we've learned that belief is a tool, not an end, it allows us to deal with the cognitive dissonance of knowing there really is no knowable truth. Everything is moving. Everything is malleable, and that gives us the ability to keep ourselves. Because the only thing that we can know is us, and that's what allows us to keep the core within all these systems. And that's another thing that we learn with the chaos magic, is the keeping of the self. Because you'll find after a while that as you shift from one paradigm into the other and move from one version of yourself to another to see things from all these different perspectives, there's still a you. Even when we experience full ego death, afterwards, there is still a you. There is still a piece. That is I. And no matter how much everything moves and changes, I am. Or you are. Which, you'll have to watch the... I get more into that concept in the video, I am. And that's one of them things, I can just keep telling you the clues, but it's the simplest thing in the world, and you just have to see it for yourself in order for it to really click. But as we move through these paradigms, it gets us different moves, different perspectives on this central core, not of reality, but of the self. Because you will find there is something that stays, and that is the I. Okay. So, that becomes important as we step into the weird, because that is the central core. That is where your spin begins, is with your perception, that bit that is you. That is what wields your weird. And the weird, as we've discussed before in a few videos, is the pattern that is central, that becomes apparent within all things. It is the moment between chaos and order. It is the moment between fate and free will. It is, when I talk about the law of paradox, it is that moment of paradox. The weird is the one thing that is completely undefinable. There's another thing that's completely undefinable because it is the present. And the present moves faster than we can perceive it. It is that moment of. And so, we move before and behind the weird the best that we can, and we can only enter in to it, but we cannot move within it. If that makes any sense, then you're starting to catch on, but I realize there's a lot of paradoxes in there. That's the point. There is a paradox to all of existence between the all thing and the nothing. It is I who moves. Okay, so we're getting a bit off track. We're supposed to be debriefing from Chaos Magick, and now I'm getting off onto the mysteries or riddles of the universe. Okay, so I do want to say that we're going to be talking more about riddles and mysteries as we continue this movement into the new weird sorcery paradigm, and I begin becoming more myself and putting the pieces into a central whole. Okay, but back to Chaos Magick. What else do I have to say? Let's see. We've covered a lot of the basic concepts. I mean, there's a lot more in Chaos Magick, but all of it is taken bits from pieces. There is, of course, you got your servitors and egregores and tulpas and all these things. Most of those didn't originally come from Chaos Magick, but have been brought into it. But within those, hopefully, you will begin to understand the concept of awareness when you've had a few of them either intentionally become self-aware or accidentally even become self-aware. There is a lesson there in the idea of what consciousness is, what is existence, and where an I begins. Because that's what happens when you give it self-aware. It becomes an I. And once you perceive, you never leave. Those things are somewhere. Anything that is ever perceived, become aware, is somewhere. So the other lesson that hopefully you learned there is that even if you have created a being, it does not make it yours. Once it is aware, it is there. But this also works on the other scale, in that no matter what the tale, you do not have to do what a god says, or goddess. And this is another lesson that is in Chaos Magick that we must take with us if we are going to find free will. And that is that we are not the servants of the gods, but neither are the gods our servants. We must find the weird within to find the way forward as ourselves. Okay, we will have more to talk about of lessons I've learned from Chaos Magick, but I think that's probably enough for one episode. Thank you once again for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Until next time, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.